Hello and welcome to Quit Your Crappy Job, Finding Courage for Positive Change. Hello and welcome to another episode of Quit Your Crappy Job. I am your co-host, Scott Wilson.
And I'm Jeff Hughes. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Jeff. Hope you're doing well this day, today.
Yeah, I sure am. How are you?
Good. The little Freudian slip of this, it's because it's a Friday. So I was going to say this Friday as we go into a weekend. But anyways, Jeff, we are joined by a spectacular guest. Her name is Danielle. And Danielle left the corporate world, moved back to Jamaica, and opened a restaurant called The Plantry. So we are here to hear her story and her why. So Danielle, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Perfect. So Danielle, as we get started, why don't you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, and then we'll kind of dive into your journey.
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Terrelonge. I am born and bred Jamaican, but I went to university in the United States, and I lived there for some years after. So I spent about 11 years in the US. I worked as a strategic planner, and I was working in finance at the time. And then I decided, little Blackwood or a little black story. I was about to do my master's. I decided, I want to get an MBA. And so I'm an immigrant. So I came home to do the paperwork and then to go back. And then everything didn't quite work out and things weren't fitting. And for years, I'd been considering moving back to Jamaica and just being home based. For whatever reason, it just didn't work out. And I took that as this like divine sign. They're like, oh, you should definitely stay home. So I stayed home. I was still doing corporate, but I wasn't happy. It was, corporate America, corporate Jamaica. I think it doesn't matter where you do it. Corporate is corporate everywhere. And I didn't love it. I didn't like it. And I said, screw this. I'm out. And I quit. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of like doing yoga and doing nature walks. And after a couple of months, I said, I kind of want to do something more. I miss the excitement of working. I miss, the day-to-day tasks. So I started a company. That company still exists. It's called Homegrown, and it is skincare, and it's all organic and plant-based. And then the following year, it was doing really well, and my passion for cooking was calling. And so I decided to launch The Plantry. So that was about 3 years ago. I started the company, and we were doing these gourmet vegan gelatos and ice cream bars. And then we got into specialty products like pistachio milk and chai lattes and just funky things. And then after that, when COVID came, I said, I really want to do food. So I just jumped head in. A lot of restaurants at the time locally were closing and shifting and trying to figure out how to work with the COVID protocols. I never stopped. I just dove in head first. And now I have this amazing restaurant. We opened the first location on the south coast of the island back in February. We're now closed for May, and we reopen with our next location in Port Antonio. So we're going to do from the cave to jungle. So now we're going to be in a jungle setting. So That's pretty gnarly. And that's it.
That's awesome. Boy, so how long were you working in the corporate world in the United States?
So my stint with corporate began when I was still in university. So in junior year, I studied political science. Mm-hmm. And we had to do kind of like I don't know what you'd call it. It's like a project. You had to actually go and do hours in a company that was registered and still in operation and had to be public or private sector. And you had to go in and do a strategic plan and do like 40 hours of work. Then you had to come back and report everything. And then a year later, they would go and check if what you recommended to this company was actually used and implemented within the company. And then they give you a grade on it. And you could not graduate without this research work exercise thing. So that's how I got my hands dirty with strategic planning. It turned out I was really good at it. And then when I graduated, I landed this job with a company that was based in Blue point in Long Island, they do financial arbitration. So they're doing stuff with FINRA outside of courts. They're doing the out of court settlements. So I was doing strategic planning with them, and I was with them for years and years until I came back home to Jamaica. So that's how I got started with that, and that's what I did. So strategic planning, I have a knack for looking at the whole picture and going, this is where you're suffering. Here's how you can fix it. Here's how you can not lose money fixing it. Here's how you can make some more. So that's me in corporate in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great.
What is it, Danielle, that just didn't do it? You probably thought it was great to start with, but what changed?
I thought it was amazing. The money, let me just tell you, to be honest, the paycheck I was very happy. I was making a lot more than my friends who graduated with me. And I was having a very nice life. But I am a true island girl. You know, I grew up on the water, like we live right by the sea. I'm accustomed to having dogs running around and just going and picking a coconut from the tree. And I didn't quite have that. I was living in, so I lived in Miami and then Boston. I lived in Cambridge, and then I was living in Manhattan. So I lived about a block from Times Square. If you guys have been, you know it's pure chaos and a lot of concrete. Yeah. And internally, it just didn't mesh well with who I was or who I am. And so I always felt uncomfortable, and I always felt like I was an other. No matter how much assimilation I exercised in my daily life, I never really quite felt a fit. And I knew I wanted to be home, and I wanted to live a lifestyle that I grew up seeing more of. And I can honestly say, coming back home and just kind of like leaning into all things island life, like now it feels like a good fit, you know, like now it's more comfortable. Yeah.
Did you have any family in the United States or?
Yeah, I did. Actually, my parents are based there.
Okay.
So yeah, they do the back and forth thing. So they have a business in Jamaica. So they have a home there. So they're like back and forth half the year. And I do have family members there. So technically I wasn't alone. But like I said, my love is with the island, you know? So I always felt like, oh, I need to go, I need to leave. Even when I was in college, you know, Spirit used to have these like super cheap flights from Miami airport to the Caribbean, and Jamaica was one of the chartered flights. So I could actually fly home for like $70 on the weekends. And I used to. Wow. Yeah, I used to. So every opportunity I could get, I would run home.
So was it a long process to decide to jump out of corporate, or did it all happen pretty quick?
No, it happened. So I had already started my MBA program. I was 2 weeks in, and I came home. I was supposed to be in Jamaica for about 4 days. I came with a little Lululemon backpack and some gym clothes and flip-flops. And I went and I did all that I was supposed to do. And they were like, yeah, we're not approving this request. Sorry. And I was just like, okay, great. And usually when someone gets a denial of any sort, they are just like, you know, they're out of sorts, they're crying, they're sad. Yeah. I was just like, oh, great. I got in the car, I drove 2 hours, I went home. And I remember I took my phone and I put it in a drawer and I let it die. And for about 2.5 weeks, I just woke up when I felt like. I went for nature walks, I went swimming. I ran out of clothes. I had to buy some. And then one day I decided, okay, maybe I should charge my phone because I think people are going to be calling. I plugged my phone in. I had like 60 missed calls from my mom. My dad was calling. My friends were calling. And I had the first conversation after about 2.5 weeks of just blissful silence in nature. And it was with my mom. And she goes, "You're not coming back, are you?" And I was like, no. And she just knew, because like I said, for years and years, I never wanted to stay. I actually did not want to go to university in the US. I was begging them to let me go to the University of the West Indies. And they were like, no, go abroad. Don't you want to? And so I was kind of pushed to do it. Yeah. I was pushed to be there. I was pushed to stay. I was pushed to find that office job. And it was weird living in America because all the things I didn't want to do, I kept landing with my foot in these opportunities that allowed me to do the things that everyone was telling me to do. And so seemingly I was successful and seemingly I was happy, but I was so depressed. Oh my God. Terrible. So it was like, to answer your question, everything just flowed and everything was instantaneous. And even deciding what I would do while I was in Jamaica, it came very, very easy. After a couple months, I think I probably spent about maybe 5, 6 months of just in nature. And then I had a little bit of freak out because I'd never been an entrepreneur before then. I was just the corporate Barbie and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, okay, you only know how to play this corporate game. Just suck it up and just get an office job. And so I got a job and I was the director of procurement at this project management company. And I had a corner office. I was getting paid, again, more than my friends my age. And I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable. I was actually living about 4 hours away from my hometown in Jamaica. And every weekend I would trek 8 hours round trip, go home and just sit and stare at the water. And after about 7, 8 months of doing that, I just like checked out emotionally. I was like, it's not the country, it's not the money, it's not the job. It's that you're not doing what you need to do and you need to just sit and look at the water. And so I quit my job. I moved to Kingston, which is the capital of Jamaica. It's also where the creative center of Jamaica is. And I said, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, if I'm going to be doing something creative, I have to be in Kingston. The idea, the business, the Zaza Zoom, whatever the fuck it's going to be, it's going to get to me when I'm in Kingston. So I packed up, I quit my job, I moved to Kingston. I found an apartment in about 3 days, which is, if you speak to any Jamaican, that's impossible. But I like to think everything was meant to be because it worked so easily. But in 3 days, I found an apartment here. I set up shop. And a month later, I opened Homegrown. And then a year later, Plantry was born. And both companies are still alive. And like I said, we're about to have our new location now with Plantry, which is very, very exciting because I'm now back where everything started. I'm in Portland, which is on the northeast coast of the island. I am about 50 steps away from the very water I used to sit at and meditate. And it just feels so right. It feels right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. As you went through this, Danielle, did you ask anybody for advice? I mean, suddenly becoming an entrepreneur is a big step. And you mentioned you were a little nervous about that. Were there any advisors?
Going into restaurants. I mean, that's...
No, I did not ask anyone for help because Jamaica is very cliquey. Like, it's very, very cliquey. Imagine moving to the Hamptons and you know no one. That's how cliquey it is. Just so you guys understand. So I didn't ask anyone. I didn't have the resources to ask anyone. I kind of spoke with my mom about it because my parents are entrepreneurs, but they're entrepreneurs in a different, like a different category. And so they didn't really have much advice, just like you need to have thick skin and you need to be really smart with what you do and don't jump to the next thing. Like, finish this one and then go to the next one. It was a lot of just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what would stick. That was how I got my hands dirty. And I started with both companies, whether it was Homegrown or Plantry. I started with products that I've been making for years. So for Homegrown, we have like 3 signature products. These are things I've been gifting to family members and friends for over like 15 years. For Plantry, it's, again, products that I've been making for years and years, or products that, like, I traveled to the next end of the world and someone that had a recipe passed down from their great-great-grandma taught me how to make this thing. And you can feel it when you interact with the brand because a lot of the products are not just very Jamaican with the ingredients, but they're clearly other things. Like I do a lunch offering every now and then that is in the style of an Indian street food. And I had the wife of the Indian ambassador once order from me. And she actually called me and she said, "How the hell did you do this?" She goes, "Wait, are you actually Jamaican?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she goes, wait. How did you make this? How did you make it? And she goes, I feel like I'm home. how did you do this? And I go, well, my grandma is from like somewhere in northern Delhi. So she learned how to make this from her mother and her mother before her. And I spent a lot of time in her kitchen. So everything that I do now, even though I am this person here now, I'm doing it the way that maybe your own grandma would make it. And I'm taking my time and doing things in a slow way. So there's a little bit more intention and love and process behind it. And she goes, listen, from now on, she goes, I want to order this every week. That was a couple of years ago. I don't make that particular offering anymore, but I'm sure if I did, I wouldn't have to worry about the sales. So, so there's just there's a lot of intentionality that goes behind all of the things. And there's a lot of respect to the process of how things are made. And you can taste it and feel it whenever you, like I said, you interact with the brand, you get, whether it's a milk or an ice cream or a food product, like, yeah, you just taste it and you know it was made the right way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your menu sounds pretty eclectic. I mean, most restaurants will pick a genre and stick with it. And a lot of that has due to economic reasons,
Yes.
as well as other market driven reasons. How are you doing this, having such a different set of meal offerings?
I will tell you. So I source everything locally. Well, not everything, sorry. I source almost everything locally. I don't get matcha locally, but I do use moringa, which is our version of matcha, and it's a superfood. It's actually more nutrient packed than matcha, but it's in the same category by definition. So I'm sourcing a lot locally. I'm using local farmers. And because I am so small, everything is small batch. If you were to come to the restaurant, I actually don't seat more than 6 people at a time. And people sometimes go, well, how do you make any money? How does that even work? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes sense for me because it is a small batch brand and we do everything in a small batch way. And I am anti-corporation. And what I mean is my business and lifestyle operate in a way where I can generate and put into places like the people I'm sourcing from. So they're getting paid fairly and they're happy with what they get from me. I'm charging a premium price because it is a more refined product offering and experience. And so I'm making more than some of my counterparts in this industry. And also the timeline. So I'm not open every day. And the days that I am open, I make enough to sustain myself, my business, and all of my allies and collaborators. So that's how I'm able to do it. And also, I cannot offer a set menu year round because I respect nature in a way where I have to honor it. So when things are available, I have them to use. And when they're not, I have to improvise and use other ingredients. So for example, if you guys really love mangoes or jackfruit, you'd come and know, okay, sometimes I'm going to get some dessert or dishes that feature this, but then other times of the year, you absolutely cannot expect it. And it gives mystery and awe and it's excitement because people now know, I kind of don't know what Danielle is going to have this time, like they can come in the fall and in the summer and it's night and day. It's like a totally different experience. And so keeping people on their toes, keeping me being challenged means that I have an exciting product that continuously delivers and keeps people happy and I'm happy. So it's all full circle. So that's how I'm able to do that. That's what I was answering you for.
I was going to say, Scott, do you serve lunch and dinner or breakfast, lunch and dinner or what?
So we only serve brunch and dinner. Our brunch is on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and Mondays. And it's from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Then I take a break and then dinner service begins again at 5 p.m. and we go straight back till midnight. We have a traditional dinner that's served where you come in and you get 4 courses, including cocktails. And that's from 5 to 7 p.m. And then we have our chef's tasting, which it's a little bit more fancy pants. It's for the people that like really want to get blown away and don't mind spending a little bit more. And that one is about 7 courses. It's really, really fun. I rarely repeat anything on that menu. I do use some ingredients again and again, but I try to challenge myself to present them in a new way. So you might have say a hibiscus flower and you had it in your cocktail, and then you come back and it's in your main course, or you come back another time and it's powdered and it's, you know, buried in something in the second or third course. And I'm like, hey, guess what that was? And you're sitting there like tasting it. You're like, oh my God, I can't figure it out. Like, it's so familiar. And then I'll say, oh, it was so-and-so. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. So that one is my most interactive offering. And it's only offered on Fridays and Saturdays. And like I said, it's 7 p.m. It goes till about midnight. People love that one. That's the most exciting way to like experience plantry, because you just never know. And it's so exciting. And I'm excited too, because I'm there like and cooking at the same time. And so people get to see as I'm in the kitchen making these things. And so they get to drop a question. Hey, Danielle, why did you do that? Why did you add that to that thing? And I get to explain to them. And then I'm presenting and they're eating course by course and like, oh my God, I totally understand why you did. Okay, it makes sense now. Wow, this is amazing. Or how come it tastes like fish? There's no fish in it. And I'm like, oh, the nori sheets. And remember I did the da-da-da. And they're like, oh, okay. So I have the most fun with my chef's tasting. So yeah, I hope I answered the question.
That's awesome. So are your visitors, your guests, tourists, or are they locals? And how far out are you booked typically?
All right.
Exactly. That's what I was going to ask too.
Because I want to come to this place.
When I first started in February, I was constantly running ads like, oh my God, people need to come. And it was just like friends and family that were coming. And it was amazing. I'm so grateful and thankful for them. Yeah. Now it's a mixture of everyone. So I have my hardcore locals because they're who really, really pivoted and helped like Plantry to grow and be sustainable. So they're coming all the time.
Okay.
And typically when I started, I was only booked out maybe a couple of days in advance, but now it's a whole month. So I posted the other day, back in May, a couple of weeks ago, I posted, hey, I'm taking a rest. We are relaunching in a new location. We reopen on the 19th of June. And I said, for booking request, the online system isn't set up yet, but just DM me and request, and I'll let you know the available times. It is now May 20th, and June bookings are completely spoken for. So I'm now taking bookings for July, which is amazing. So happy to say it's usually booked a month out. So if you want to come, you can book for July, August, but for now, June is spoken for, and I'm really grateful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating business model. It is very, as you called it, Danielle, anti-corporate. Yeah. I mean, the corporate model is, you're going to have a very predictable menu. You're going to have predictable hours, all these things. And you've done the exact opposite of that and are still, I guess, making ends meet.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I guess the other question though is how do you maintain, how do you plan to maintain a balance now that you're opening a second restaurant? Are you going to divide the week up into?
So that's the thing. It's still the first restaurant. We're just actually changing location.
Oh, you're moving.
So I'm just treating it like a whole thing. I love a good party and I love a celebration. So this is just that. But it's the same restaurant, Plantry. And I love that you asked that, because now I can share. When I closed to rest, initially it was, I'm just going to rest. And then the opportunity presented itself to change locations and be home-based, which I was traveling back and forth every week, and it was really starting to take a toll. And I was like, I could be closer to home. I could be where I wanted to begin in the first place. I think I'm going to do that. And then it was, now is an opportunity to be even more intentional. I actually don't want to interact with like 6 to 12 people a day. I think I want to interact with 4 to maybe 8 people a day, only 4 days a week, this time to that time. And so I sat down and I put pen to paper and I just had a conversation, a very honest conversation with myself. How much labor do you want to exert daily? How many people do you want to work with? What does your team look like? What should it look like? What do your visitors, your guests, your biggest allies look like? How often are they coming? How much money are you making? And I sat down and I wrote it all down. And then I got to my projection sheet And I did some numbers and plugged it in. And I was like, okay, if I rebrand in this way that is more focused on the experience and the taste of Plantry and what you can't get anywhere else, which is absolutely spectacular, I can reprice in this way and I can work in this way. And so that's what this reopening is all about. It's creating a niche within a niche that was already in another niche. And the new models dictate how I interact with myself, how I interact with the business, and how the business is interacting with people. And for the most part, everyone's been very receptive to it. I think we've hit this moment in the pandemic where people are just like absolutely knackered out. They're tired. They're not just saying, I can't anymore. They're looking at people and going, I understand how you can't anymore too. And so people have been really respectful and loving towards this new model that I have, because for them, they can't jump through hoops to come at a specific time. They like that they can say to me, hey, when are the times available? I can send them a calendar and they can select which works best for them and the time that works best for them. I'm also now on the days that I'm closed. If people have a request for those days to do something more intimate where they come in and there's no one else but them in the space, I'm happy to accommodate. That's also a new thing that I never used to do before. But now I'm learning flexibility within my model means that people can be flexible with me. And it's a more aligned way to run the business. So everyone's been really good about it and happy. And I'm excited to see how these new models fare. I'm happy to see how they become more and more consistent. So that's it.
So Danielle, do you mind if I ask a question real quick? Jeff, thanks. I just want to clarify something. So the first location, you could seat 6 people. What about the new location? Because you're mentioning your team size like 4 to 8. So
the new location can seat 4 people.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I will be open to 4 for brunch, 4 for dinner, and maybe 4 for a chef's tasting. Yeah. So that's it. And I will now be only doing chef's tasting 2 days out of the 4 days that I'm open. I'm learning that I pour a lot into this. I don't shut off. I'm sleeping, I'm waking up, and I'm writing down ideas that I have for Plantry. I always have a piece of paper in the car because something is always coming to me and I have to just pull over stuff and write it down. I am absolutely madly devoted to my brands. And I want to continuously be able to pour into them and to over deliver to people, because that's what I've been doing. And in order for me to do that and do that well and do that in a way that doesn't break me, I have to recharge. And so this model will stay the way that it is now.
So, so I have to ask about the cave. Yes. How did you find the cave? And that seems so unique. So I wonder, are you concerned at all about preserving the uniqueness of your brand without the cave? So tell us about the cave.
I'll tell you about the cave. So I didn't find the cave. The cave found me.
Okay.
It was on a property that had some guest cottages that I always stayed at. Every year I would go and I would just go and unplug. And I always saw the entry to the cave and I would occasionally go in, but it was in not a good state. It had jagged rocks. It was not ever at any point cared for. And I saw it for what it was. I didn't see it for how it was in that moment. I kept seeing what I could do in it and how beautiful it could be if just a little love and money and energy was put into it. And so one day I stood in the cave and I had a conversation with her. And it has to be a woman because the energy in there, and if you guys went in there, you'd go, yeah, it's definitely a girl. But I was in there and I had a conversation with her and I said, listen, this is what I want to do. I'm going to tell you and you tell me what you feel like. And I sat in there and I had one of the most candid conversations with I don't know who. And I went to sleep on it and I woke up with this reassurance almost that I could do it. And I remember the following morning, I went back into the cave And I kept thinking about the conversation before and just what I was asking of this space. And it almost felt like a hand on my shoulder. And it was like, girl, go ahead. You're good. You got this. Do whatever you feel like. Put some makeup on me, razzle dazzle it up. I don't care. Make me beautiful. And so had a conversation with the landowner. We figured out a few things. I got to building and I created this amazing space. And if you have seen any photos of it, and I have pictures somewhere very deep in my camera roll of the space before, no one could imagine what I created in there, because it came out of this cranium. So when you say, am I worried or thinking even about the unique aspect of it in a new location? I am not, because I have so many ideas, and also the brand is a eco-friendly, sustainable brand. So we build in a way that doesn't obstruct or disrupt nature. And we build in a way where if I want to take something out from a location and bring it to another location, I can do that and create a whole new aesthetic using some of the same pieces. So that's what we did. This first location was dismantled. All of the reusable, equitable pieces were moved to my new location from the old one. And now I've just been sketching and reworking this new space and playing around with it. Like, okay, how can I deck this? Can I deck this? Do I put walls up? Do I put windows? Okay. How's this kitchen going to look? Okay. What's the view? How do we rework it? Because again, the first space was a cave. There are not many restaurants inside of a cave, especially not in Jamaica. This new location is not a cave. It actually is overlooking the world famous Blue Lagoon. And it feels like you're in a Costa Rican jungle. So there are a couple new design elements that I have to take into consideration. But I am excited. I feel this location is more spiritual and a little bit more magical than the first one, because this one just has nature. It's a lot of nature. There's a lot of just lush greenery around you. There's a point in the location where if you look up, you know the sky is above you, but you're just seeing trees interlock. And if you sit there and if you just observe, you hear the birds, you hear the movement, you hear the leaves tossle, you see the leaves falling down every now and then. There is this beautiful melody to nature in this space. You can only experience it when you are there, and you feel, you're not there alone. And I don't know, you have to be there. So I feel like to be in a space like this and have not just that magic around you, but eating this food that you may know one and two ingredients, but you've never quite understood flavor in that way. It's a whole other can of worms. It's very, very magical. I know I say magical a lot. There's no other way to describe it.
So it sounds like you're bringing a perhaps new ambiance to the restaurant, and even though the cave was unique, this is a whole new level of unique. Okay, yeah, that's just incredible.
So Danielle, one of the questions I have, kind of going back to that, there's 4 people. You had mentioned that you measured it all out, right? Who do I want to work with? Who do whatever? That makes me think that when you view your customers as someone you're working with. Am I correct in that assumption? Is this an interactive experience? You're not just throwing food on their table, or?
No, this is all about interaction. And so I'm glad you asked. My customers are not my customers. My patrons are my actual cult members. Like, they PR for me. They send references. They send reviews. They get orders for me. I mean, I get messages sometimes and it's just like, hey, I transferred you X amount of money. I need da. Can you send it to this person? Or, hey, I sent you some money. Can you just give some products to this person? I know they're going to love it. They love moringa. So just surprise them. I've never heard of anything like this in my life. So these are my friends. These are friends turned family. Some of my closest friends now that I celebrate really beautiful life moments with, they started as plantry clients. We met because they saw something in a post from my business and it just resonated with them and they had to have it. And they came and they had it and it over delivered. And they were just like, you're the person making it. Oh my God. And we start talking and it's just, we realize we're kindred spirits. So they are not customers. I don't call them customers. I call them friends. And it's very rare that I have people who come and don't come a second time. I interacted with a new friend maybe about a month ago. She booked a month and a half in advance for her birthday dinner. She flew from New York City. She brought friends over. She drove about 5 hours to dine with me. And because I knew it was her birthday, I actually didn't take any more reservations that day. So it was her brother, and her cousin in the cave alone. And she said, Danielle, this is just absolutely incredible. She goes, there's no other place in the world I could have had a birthday like this. Come on. And she already, she had an amazing time. And to this day, we still talk. She's now planning her second visit. She's like, she said to me, it does not matter where you are, I will find you.
That's devotion.
And it is. And this is what all of the people who visited have said. They're now saying things like, I don't care what you put on the plate. Just charge me. I'll pay. And I'm honored to have interactions like this in business in a time like this, in a climate like this. I'm happy that I can charge what I charge and people are happy to give to me because it keeps me giving to them. It's a beautiful flow. I know people talk about trickle down economics and people argue it doesn't work and it's a model that doesn't quite exist in real life. It works with me. You know, the farmers are happy, the vendors are happy, I'm happy, my clients are extremely happy. They trust me. That's another big thing. They trust me and I trust them. And the energy that we exchange, the money energy, the interaction energy, the energy around the food, them feeling absolutely satiated and sustained, them going home and not having a stomach ache. I mean, that is just absolutely beautiful. And I think I could only do it in the way that I'm doing it now, with integrity and small batch. There's just a lot of love and a lot of trust, and I'm very grateful.
That's an amazing business model that you've come up with. And it sounds like you're always trying to achieve a balance between quality of life and work. And so do you see yourself expanding at all, or just?
I do, actually. So okay. I did a fellowship in 2020, YLI, it's the Young Leaders of the Americas. It's through the U.S. State Department. And they work with entrepreneurs in like Latin America and parts of the Caribbean. And I actually received 2 grants from them that was meant to help Plantry scale up. And it really did. It really, really did. And I think there are now new opportunities to continue working with them in the US. So I'm happy to report that that will be happening. And Plantry does plan on expanding. I'm launching the Ice Pops in New York City next spring and for summer. So there's going to be a lot of talk around that. I've been working with some gyms in New York City. So their focus is holistic healing. They do yoga. They're doing like psilocybin retreats and ceremonies. And so they thought that my brand was pretty on brand with theirs. They're going to be having some of the Plantry popsicles and like specialty desserts. That's a new thing, a new growth project that I'm super excited about and I'm super excited to share.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Danielle, 2 questions.
Yes.
Are you the actual chef for Plantry?
I am.
It sounded like that. So that's an interesting transition from corporate America to, that's it, cooking full time.
To the outside world. It's interesting, but I am the person in my family that I used to have like Mother's Day, Father's Day brunch, just actually any day. I would just use it as an excuse to throw a brunch party. And I would be up from like 2 days before, not sleep, just in my mom's kitchen throwing down. And everyone would come to our house and it would be like a big celebration. Even just growing up, I was always hosting and cooking and trying different things, creating new recipes off old ones. So to my friends, when I started Plantry, they were not surprised. My family is not all surprised, like at all. It's mostly people that knew me in like corporate. They're really shocked because I never talk about cooking. So they're just like, oh, you can do that? Okay. And then they tried and like, oh, you can do that. And I'm like, yes, I can. I've been cooking since I was about 4 years old. When I travel exclusively for food. So I'm also doing like a lot of homestays and learning authentic recipes from people that are, I don't know, two, 3 times my age. I spend a lot of time researching foods and recipes and learning about the ingredients. I'm also obsessed with herbology. So any way that I can sneak in something that's beneficial to your health that is going to taste amazing and look beautiful on a plate, I'm always trying to do that. So what's the next question? Because that was a good question.
Yeah. So that was the first one. And the second one is, so this is, the restaurant, which is very intimate, very interactive. Your customers are really your friends and your partners through the experience. But homegrown sounds more like a product that's, the typical distribution channel you can find in stores, right? So that scales a little differently. Is that correct?
It's scaled a little bit differently. So I do treat it small batch. I typically make, so homegrown is interesting. Homegrown is like pantry. It's a ritual around the things that are made. I'm making things also small batch, not as small batch as pantry. So things are made typically about 4 dozen at a time. I do it at home in good spirits. I am playing specific kinds of music. I'm honoring the process of making things and taking my time. Homegrown is now offered as a white label product. So what I do is I am working with small stores and boutique hotels and spas, and they pick from the product lineup things that resonate more with them, their brand, their clientele, and I make it for them, and then we do monthly, bi-monthly deliveries. It takes that stress off production off me, and we keep the orders small and tight-knit. And what it means is every time they get an order, they don't have to worry, they don't have to check, they know the quality they're getting. It's pretty consistent, and I'm able to deliver on that because we keep the orders tight. We never go over a certain amount, no matter how much money is being thrown my way. And it has been. I've found myself saying, I am so thankful. Thank you so much for thinking of me in this way. In order to accommodate your request, I can only ship X amount to you monthly for X amount of months. If you would like to continue interacting with the brand, we can go ahead. I can invoice you, but you must agree to these terms. And people don't always agree because they want a lot and they want it now. And my way might not be their way, but for the most part, a lot of people are on board with how I've been doing things.
Wow. I mean, this, I thought, okay, yeah. Pantry, the restaurant, got it. But surely with this thing, you've, got the recipes and you've got manufacturers that can ship it out. And this is what I would call the corporate anti-pattern, what you're doing. This is amazing. And it's got to be tempting to just give in when they're like, look, whatever it'll cost, will just give us.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. Okay. I'm going to tell you why. It's not tempting at all. So when I lived in America, I was making a lot of money and I was happy, like I said, with the money I was making. Problem with the money is because there is a void and I'm unhappy still, I'm only happy on payday. I try to drown away the other little voices telling me I need to go. And I go shop and I drink and I do whatever else. Now I get in this cycle of feeling happy, realizing I'm not happy, spending, going, oh, I spent too much, working again, getting some more, and it's vicious. Now, with how I do things here, there is no temptation. So even if someone was to say, I'm going to offer you 25,000 US dollars right now for this big order, take it. I'm going to look and I'm going to go, if I buy crypto with this $25,000 right now, it's gone. I can't even buy one Bitcoin. So it's not a lot, one, but two, for me to accommodate an order that size, because I lack the physical space, the machinery, the capacity to, because I'm one person and I have one assistant, I'm going to under-deliver on the high quality that I'm typically delivering on. That makes me look bad. I'm going to put stress, anxiety, confusion into the products. You're going to get something that you're not happy with. You're going to be pissed. You might want your money back. I might have used some to make the order. It's terrible what would happen. And I already know that kind of chaos and stress, I don't want it in my life. So when I say things like no to people, I say it with love and patience and an understanding that it's not you, it's me. And I must at all costs preserve the high standard and quality that I am able to deliver on. And this is how I can deliver that. So there's no temptation. Wow. No matter how much money is thrown my way, no temptation, because it's me and one other person, and we literally cannot.
But it sounds like it's the same model as you run your restaurant. It's limiting capacity and maintaining this high level of quality.
Yes. Yeah.
And like Scott said, it's a sort of anti-corporate, because I think where Scott was going with it was, well, you have this restaurant that has limited capacity, but I'm sure you're going all out on the homegrown side, selling as many products as you can. And that's your cash cow. That's where all the revenue is coming in. But it sounds like it's just the same model. That's amazing. I am so impressed about how you maintain your quality of life and try to keep everything in balance. And most people don't do that. That's part of the reason we're doing this podcast, is because so many people are unhappy with their jobs.
I think with the unhappiness, and this is something that should be said, a lot of people that are unhappy because of the urgency of capitalism and corporate, a lot of people don't stop to examine the real reasons why they're unhappy. Some people actually aren't unhappy with their job. And this is the rhetoric I also want to get in. Sometimes it's not corporate. Sometimes it's us, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're not stopping. We're not listening to our bodies. Sometimes we don't need to quit our jobs. Sometimes we just need better work-life balance. So, at 5 or say at 6 p.m., say, you know what? I'm going to turn off the phone, put it on Do Not Disturb. I'm going to just try to hash out some emails till 7, but at 7, I'm going for a walk with the dog, or, I'm going to go have a drink with my wife in the kitchen. Like, I'm going to go color with my daughter. Like, it's not, you don't always need to quit your job and run off in the jungle. This is just me. But for the most part, people don't have to do that. They just need to stop and have a cup of freaking tea sometime. Listen to their bodies, listen to their souls, see what's going to make me happy right now. What accessible thing do I have right now, right here, that could bring me joy and peace?
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. And I see there's a huge trend now of people like quitting their jobs and doing this and going to the jungle. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But what's not being talked about sometimes is people quit and they have no plan and they have no resources to help them assimilate in a completely opposite lifestyle. And then they crack, and then they have to go back to corporate, and then they're starting lower than where they left. And that gives them more stress and more anxiety. And I think examining how we deal with our stress, how we fill in these voids, that's the real conversation. Because for the most part, we don't have to quit. Sometimes like these jobs, look at it. I'm working now more than I ever worked in corporate. I do. I'm working way more. This is a conversation I have with my mom sometimes, like, Mommy, I'm working so hard. And she's like, yeah, and it's why I need 4 work days, 3 rest days, because I will crack, I'll fray at the seams, because it's a lot of work and a lot of labor, and you have to love it to do it. And I know for some people, what they're doing in corporate, whether we think is boring or not, they genuinely love it. I just give them joy. So I think finding that balance, focusing on tangible things that bring joy and peace and comfort, those are things that we could definitely talk about. I think that's like a really beautiful conversation to have.
Yeah. You raise a very good point. And the focus of our podcast is, the tagline is finding courage for positive change. And that positive change doesn't always mean leaving your job. It means finding a better work-life balance. It means maybe it means changing departments and working for somebody else.
Maybe just asking for a pay raise, like something.
Yes. No, absolutely.
or even taking a vacation, right? Since we
Yeah.
started the podcast, I've actually had people calling me up now that I'm the quit your job expert, right? And asking, and in a couple of cases they've asked, I was like, it sounds like you got to just take a week or two off.
Yeah.
You know, when was the last time you took a vacation? Oh, I haven't. Well, why don't you start with that? You know, go.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. But I mean, you're right, Danielle. I mean, you know, one of the Jeff, if you remember, our first guest, right, was a CEO, and one of the things he observed is that when people come to quit and he's matched them, well, how much are they offering? I'll match it. He finally stopped doing that because he recognized that at the end of the day, if someone has reached this point where they want to quit, it's not always about the money. And within 6 months of matching them and keeping them, they leave anyway.
Yeah, they
And
leave
so,
anyway.
and he said a lot of the times, to your point, Danielle, that these people themselves, they think it's the money, but then they realize it's not. There's something else. Maybe they've done all they can do, contributed all that, learned all that they could learn at that job, and that's really what it is. Or like yourself.
And this is why I said earlier what I said. It doesn't matter how much money you offer. I need 4 days on like a machine, 3 days off, right? I want to walk the dog. I want to just snip the leaves, so to speak. But the days when we can do, and for all of us, right, that are still in corporate, have been in corporate, we have these crazy intense schedules, or for you guys, I don't know, maybe you're married with kids and you have all this life around you. You have to be able sometimes to do nothing, to simply sit and be present and be still and find some zen internally. And until you do that, like you said, it don't matter if you get all the money, you're going to quit. You're going to want to quit. You're going to tap out because you're burning the candle at both ends, and you can't do that. So that's really, I think I'm getting it from you. You guys are getting it from me. That work-life balance is probably the most important, whether you're in corporate or not. Like, you have to have balance.
Yeah. And sometimes balance, by the way, kind of going full circle, is just kind of finding what I've come to call your why. You're doing something that is aligned with your why. And the why comes from what I explained in another podcast, comes from Mark Twain, who said that there were two important dates in your life. The first is the day you're born, and the second is when you find out why, or when you discover why. And so when you find that why, you're working more than you did before, but you're happy. Yeah. You're happier. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Genuinely, yes.
Yeah. And you radiate that.
Yes.
You really do.
Yeah, everyone says that now. They're like, oh my God, you look so happy. And I'm like, I think I actually am. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to feel this way and to say it and know, even in moments of uncertainty, in moments of pure chaos. I've been saying lately, I'm leaning into the divine unknown, because I will not suffer. I will not starve. I will not be homeless. Like, I'm doing what I was put here to do. I am changing my own life, helping people change theirs, helping people live better, happier, healthier lives. And it brings me so much joy. If I just keep doing that, keep honoring the process, everything will fit and everything will work exactly as it should. I just need to chill out.
Well, we couldn't have said it better.
Exactly, Danielle. Well, this is awesome. I was going to ask you if you had advice, but you've kind of doled it out. Actually, I don't know.
I honestly do. I think I would definitely tell people, whether you're planning to quit your job or not, you should always, and it's so silly, but it's a fun thing to do a SWOT analysis on yourself. And if you don't know what that is, it's just an assessment of you. It's looking at your strengths, looking at your weaknesses, looking at opportunities or ways you can improve yourself, looking at your most toxic things. We're going to call those the threats. You know, what do I do that really is not in my best interest? List it out. And then you're going to take a look at all of that. You put it down in black and white, whether you do it on your computer, you write it on a piece of paper, but really look at it and be honest, have an honest dialogue with yourself about yourself, and work at it. You know, all the opportunities for improvements. Why are you not doing this? Do them. You don't have to do all of them, but pick the things that are the most easiest to integrate in your life and do that. The places where you see some toxicity or you're hindering, you're holding back your own personal growth and development, scratch it. Cold fucking turkey. Why are you doing this? It serves you zero. Remove it. And even if you feel yourself slipping back into it, because, sometimes I do things that don't serve my higher purpose. But I remind myself, hey, let's not do that. So constantly remind yourself and check in. And I find when you do this regularly, and I think it's good to do this maybe twice a year. You can do it more often if you're up to it. But if it's difficult for you to even complete, you can find templates online, like a one-page template, but just put it to you, the person yourself. Do it twice a year. Record what you've been doing as the year progresses. Come back to it and analyze and see, like, did I actually make some of these changes? Did I enforce them in my life? Have I made improvements? Have I really checked myself on some of the toxic shit that I've been doing? What are the takebacks from this? What are thoughts that are coming up as I review this thing that I did for myself, this analysis of me? I think everyone benefits from that. It's a great way to check in with yourself. It's a great activity to be present. If you're someone who is constantly thinking about the future or ruminating on the past, this is a really awesome trick to ground yourself and be present. And again, because there's no ulterior motives with this, it's just you having an honest talk with yourself about yourself. You kind of see everything put out in front of you, and you kind of get that little within yourself, okay, I kind of want to do this, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think it helps for anyone looking to make changes for the better. It definitely helps. There's so many templates online. I mean, it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
So Danielle, you threw a little, that's actually a corporate term, a SWOT analysis, just for the audience who may not know what that is. It is an acronym. Do you mind just quickly explaining what the SWAT?
A SWOT analysis is an assessment of an entity, and in this instance, it would be us, you, me. So it's an analysis of our strengths, our weaknesses, all of our opportunities for growth and improvement, and our threats or internal toxicities or hindrances, to be nicer. Big corporations use them when they want to restructure, when they want to account for some lost money, when they want to stop losing, when they want to focus on more gains and improvement. They usually bring someone in or a whole team, and it's a complete upheaval. I mean, they're from the bottom up, they are redoing things within the company, restructuring processes, changing dynamics, because they want the company to be better and more accountable. And they want it to look better from the outside in. And so they start working inside out to achieve that. And by doing one on yourself, you're able to mimic the process, but for you, the person. So yeah, that's why I would advise people, if you're listening and up to it, to do this exercise for yourself. It's very enlightening and humbling.
Yeah, that's awesome, Danielle. I've done lots of SWATs in my career and had never thought about doing it for myself. Actually, that's actually a good. It's a good thing.
Fantastic advice.
Yeah.
The first one I did, I was honestly annoyed, and I stopped halfway through. I was like, this foolishness. Or I ripped out the paper. I said, no, not doing it. And because I was seeing some things about me that I was not ready to be accountable for. I was like, no, it's not me, it's everyone else. No, never. And then a couple months later, things cycle. The things that are the worst for us tend to repeat themselves because we're not learning these life lessons, right? And so things were cycling and coming up again. And I was just tired. I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, no, I can't. I can't take this mentally anymore. And I had a little nudge, this idea, I'll just do a SWOT analysis. And I said, okay, all right, fine, let me do it. And by then I was just ready for a change. And I was being very honest, and I was calling myself out on all my bullshit. And I sat down for the first time, and I sat through it, and I cried. Honestly cried at the end. I was like, you are an ungrateful child. You are a spoiled brat. You are entitled. What is this? And I looked at the threats and the opportunities, and I realized there were so many opportunities for improvement. But because I'm just very lazy sometimes, I never took those on. I would complain and do the same thing over and over like a crazy person, waiting for magic, and none would happen. And I would be disappointed and angry. And for the first time, and this was 2019, this was right before opening Plantry. I had an honest chat with myself. I did a real SWOT analysis. And I said, I'm going to hold myself to this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. And I wrote down a follow-up to it of the new Danielle. This is what we're striving for. This is how we'll do this. And this is what we want for us, for me. And I'll take a bullet for it because I have to be this new person, because this new person is epic. I want to be friends with her. I don't want to be friends with this version of me. And I cried for days. I sat with it. I felt all the emotions. It was an ugly process. And I started Plantry. And that was that. It's hard to have integrity. It's hard to be accountable. It's hard to stick with your word. It is fucking hard. Every day it's a struggle, but it becomes easier. And now I'm this person where my friends, my family, everyone knows, like, oh, if Danielle says she's doing it, she's doing it. If she says yes, it's yes. You know, I'm now this person that if someone messages me, like I kind of, even from the first message, I know this intuition is so in tune now that I can go, do you need help? What do you need? I can't help you if you don't ask. But before, I'd be the kind of person that's like, ugh, what are they messaging me for? You know, and it's you see that shift in energy is so night and day. And I prefer the now version of how I think and how I am. So I can honestly say, do this little exercise with yourself and be honest. Don't hold it back and be accountable and just try a little bit every day. You literally become a better person.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should take
Like,
wrap it right here. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Danielle.
I think the only last question we would have for you is how do we, you sold me. I want to come to Jamaica and go to your restaurant.
Absolutely.
How do we do that? Tell us about how we can.
So for now, you can email at hello. It's HELLO at THEPLANTRY.co. That's it. So you can send emails there, and I'm pretty quick. They come to my iPhone, and like I reply right away.
Okay.
Or you can call if you go on Instagram and you go to the Plantry, which is THE.PLANTRY. You'll see a call button in the bio. So you can either WhatsApp, you can call, you can chat with me, send a message there. If you don't want to email, I'm pretty quick with the replies because like I'm a millennial, typical. My phone is always here. So I will reply and we can get everything set up. Right now I am taking booking requests for July and August. So just send a message, send an email, and I'll get you all sorted. I do not share menus. That's probably the biggest thing. People love to ask about the menus. I don't share them. They're actually shown when you visit in person. And awesome. It's just a way to keep people on their toes. But I do share ingredients before you show up. I'm now located in Port Antonio, which is on the northeast coast of the island. And we share the geo pin once someone makes a reservation and they confirm with their prepayment. So we just send them a drop pin and they can just Google Maps or just show up whenever.
Okay.
Sold. I'm going to get my wife. We're going to Jamaica.
Yes.
Perfect.
Not maybe the four of us will go.
That's right. That's four. So it's perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
The last thing I want to say, because some people always ask, the restaurant, while it is plant-based and the meals love veggies and they're all about veggies, I'm not vegan. And I don't cook for vegans. So I'm just cooking for people who love good food with good flavor. Most of my clients are not vegan. They come because they want something fresh and they want to feel good and not feel bad or heavy after they've eaten. And so they come sometimes and they're expecting typical, very light, you know how vegan food can be. And then they come and they get savory and expansive and heavy. And they're getting food to take home and they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know there's going to be so much. Like, this is really, really nice. And then they call me the next day, like, we had the leftovers. It was amazing. And I'm just like, this is what I want. I want to change the conversation on plant-based. It can be sexy, it can be savory, it can be heavy, it can be dirty. And it can keep you on your toes always. That's the aim for me, to keep people constantly surprised and extremely satisfied.
Fantastic.
Wow. Amazing, Danielle.
Thank you for having me. This has been a really wonderful conversation.
Indeed. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Danielle, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. You can, as always, find us anywhere you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Google, Apple, and others. You can follow us on Twitter at Quit Crappy Job. And Danielle, thank you. It was wonderful meeting you finally. You and I had been going back and forth on Instagram.
We've been having this chat for a while, and I was just like, oh my God, he probably thinks I don't want to do it. And I'm like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Just give me a day.
Well, now I know you're probably on break when I first started texting you.
There you go. But
Thank
again,
you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You as well.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
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 Thank you for joining us today. Listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Quit Crappy Job. Find us on YouTube at Quit Your Crappy Job. Contact us at quityourcrappyjob@gmail.com. Music is provided by Kelton. You can reach us at kelton.levin@gmail.com.